For years, a common belief in Bangladesh dictated how the country viewed terrorism. Many assumed radicalization only occurred in places defined by poverty and a lack of education. They looked towards slums to find the source of extremism. This assumption gave the middle and upper classes a sense of security. If the threat was fueled by financial desperation, wealthy and educated families believed their neighborhoods were naturally insulated from it. That insulation ended on the evening of July 1, 2016. The Holey Artisan Bakery was a cosmopolitan landmark in the affluent Gulshan neighborhood of Dhaka. On a quiet Friday night during Ramadan, the cafe was filled with expatriates and wealthy locals. Because the cafe was a symbol of globalism and status, the location contradicted the national expectation of where violence occurred. The targeting of Gulshan ensured that the tragedy would reach the segments of society that previously felt the most protected. At 8:45 p.m., 5 young men armed with machetes, grenades, and semi-automatic rifles stormed the bakery. They shouted slogans and began firing into the crowded dining room. The gunmen held the building for 12 hours. When para-commandos finally breached the bakery the following morning, they found the bodies of 22 people. The majority were foreign nationals from Italy, Japan, the United States, and India. The death toll was a national tragedy, but the revelation that followed changed the public's understanding of the threat. When the names and photos of the 5 attackers were broadcast, the country saw a profile of a gunman that few had expected. Inside the bakery, the attackers implemented a test. They forced hostages to recite verses from the Quran to separate Muslims from non-Muslims, intending to spare those who shared their faith. Faraz Ayaz Hossein, a 20-year-old student, successfully passed the recitation test. Because he was a local Muslim, the attackers told him he was free to leave. Faraz refused to go. His friends, Abinta Kabir and Tarishi Jain, were not being released. Despite the gunman's offer of safety, he chose to stay at the table and was killed alongside them. Faraz's sacrifice stood in direct opposition to the violence of the gunmen. In a room defined by a rigid ideology, he chose his friends over his own life. This data shows the backgrounds of the 5 gunmen. They were not products of the rural margins. They were affluent, urban, and educated at prestigious institutions. One attended university in Malaysia, while others belonged to prominent Dhaka families. They possessed the highest levels of educational and financial privilege. The investigation identified a group called Neo-JMB as the organizers. Led by Tamim Ahmed Chowdhury, a Canadian Bangladeshi, this network used encrypted messaging apps and private study groups to recruit students from wealthy households. The state responded with more than 24 anti-militancy operations. Specialized units tracked the Neo-JMB network across the country, neutralizing dozens of members and destroying stockpiles of explosives used to coordinate the Gulshan attack. These raids revealed that the group had specifically targeted elite university students. They had moved their recruiting efforts into the private, digital lives of the upper class, creating a network that was invisible to traditional law enforcement. Wealthy parents in Dhaka faced a new reality. They realized that their own children, despite their education and comfort, were the primary targets for Neo-JMB recruiters. A period of intense monitoring followed. Families scrutinized their children's online activities and social circles, searching for signs of the digital grooming that had led 5 students into the Holey Artisan Bakery. The belief that wealth provided protection was gone. Parents now viewed the internet not just as a tool for education, but as a gateway for a threat that had successfully entered their homes. In 2022, filmmaker Hansal Mehta attempted to tell this story in the Bollywood film Faraz. While it aimed to honor the students' courage, the film's release triggered an immediate legal and cultural backlash. The victims' families filed lawsuits to prevent the film from being shown, stating that the production exploited their trauma for profit. In response, the High Court in Bangladesh banned the film from both theaters and streaming platforms. The Holey Artisan attack took 22 lives and ended the country's sense of insulation. The memory of that night remains a point of contention, serving as a reminder that the threat of extremism does not stop at the gates of the wealthy.